I wake up ready.
Yeah. All right.
That is not true. That is not true, brother.
Are we live now?
What about now?
Oh, okay. Hey. Speaking of that. Well, hold on. No. I don't need headphones. Yeah, exactly. It messes up my hair.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Hey, everybody. Welcome to This Pink Cloud. I am very excited today.
Good morning, good morning.
I am Kelly Reverb. I identify as a DJ. AKA DJ Kelly Reverb.
Can I identify as a DJ?
DJKellyReverb.com. No, you identify as a professor.
Oh, that's
because
right.
you are the Professor Nolan.
The Professor Nolan. Good morning.
There he
peeps.
is,
Good morning.
right there in the flesh. I know that guy.
Ladies and gents.
And then we also have a special guest, which we will get to later, as Phil gives me the stare of death. He was very intense. I was like, oh shit, the cameras are on. Did he just go crazy?
Yeah.
No, but
Clicking
this
in the
is,
camera.
y'all might have heard of him, the YouTube sensation. I like to call him my friend.
Interesting.
CGKID, which stands for Crazy Ginger.
Okay.
So just so you know,
Makes
Crazy
sense.
Ginger Kid.
Makes sense.
Okay, but we will get to his story in a second. But Chambrielle, if you're ready over there, I want to go ahead and just introduce that we do have a new line of merch coming, which is the This Pink Cloud.
Merch is short for merchandise, by the way, guys.
Exactly. So there you have a basic shirt that we have coming up. You know, of course, with our lovely sponsor, Summer Sky. Nolan.
Summer Sky, yeah.
That's
Our favorite peoples in the world. Rehab facility out in Stephenville, Texas.
What's their address?
Their web address is www.summersky.us.
Okay.
But just an affordable and really cool rehab facility. So if you need help, man, that's about as good a place as you're going to find to get it. So reach out to them, reach out to us.
Okay, there you go. We can put you in touch with them. But anyway, so that's the basic design. Now, if you can go to the hotness of the next one.
The hotness.
The next one. These are going to cause a riot.
You notice I took my headphones off. The peer
Do you
pressure
have
was
that
too
one,
much.
Chambrielle? Oh, yeah, sorry. As we fill air. Hey, while we're doing that, I can go ahead and do the placement of the sticker.
Yeah, the ritual that is the sticker.
Sobar Basic sticker here, which is Dusty Burrows, our good friend. We'll have him on, actually. We're gonna talk about good stuff like
A little revisit with Dusty.
well, we're gonna talk about multiple pathways and whatnot. But anyway, so this is a rare sticker. This is the last one he had.
Oh, nice.
That he actually personally took off his board.
You should
that
feel special,
has
dude.
The holes on it.
You
So
should feel special.
We will do the placement.
That looks money.
I don't want to offend anybody.
No, that looks
but
good.
Right here, are we going too much over skate straight?
Nah,
or
you're going to have
right
to
here?
overlap a little, man.
Okay.
There's
well,
no
we're
getting
just
around
going
it.
in. All right,
There's
it
no
is.
getting around it.
The Sobar Basics sticker. Were you able to find those other shirts? There should be below there. There should be another one. Okay. Well, cool. Well, we'll fix that. I'll send it to you in another email.
Those are good.
Oh, yeah.
Are those
Those
two
are
separate
tight.
shirts or is that front and back?
No, that's front and back.
Front and back.
Front and back. And I will...
Our partner in crime, Summer Sky.
I'll email that over to you right now while we're interviewing. But also, can you go ahead and pull up? I wanted to plug this event because we have Recovery's Got Talent. And that is... Their actual tryouts are happening January 30th, and that's 2021. And if you got talent, if you're a musician, singer, dancer, rapper, actor, comedian, and magician. Ooh, there you go, Nolan.
Dude, you never know. You never know.
But anyway, so it's going to be at Simply Grace, and we're actually going to have her on, Annika Cooper.
Okay.
We're going to have her on the show as well when the actual event happens or prior to that.
And it's season 3, so they've already done this a couple times.
Yeah, so it's legit, and it's actually out in, in Texas. If you're in the area.
There's no doubt that that's interesting. You get
Right.
a room full of alcoholics and drug addicts. You never
With
know what
talent.
you never know what kind of
With
crazy
talent.
talents you
Yeah.
shall uncover in that bunch.
But, okay, so that being said, I guess the man of the hour.
Yeah.
Me, thank you.
Yes, of course.
Thank
Nolan,
you.
you are always the man of the hour, except for today.
I feel that way.
All right, but we have my friend, YouTube sensation, YouTube star, CGKID, a.k.a. what his mom named him, Philip Markoff.
Let's go.
Correct?
Yeah.
Your birth name.
Yeah, birthday.
Birth name. And I see that you're sporting the Psycho Bunny, correct?
Yeah. People call me Scrotum, too. That's one of my nicknames.
A scrotum. Okay.
That's good.
I like
That's
that.
good.
It's
I
good to
used
know.
Well, when I was in meetings, I'd be like, my name's Scrotum, and I'm an addict or whatever. And the people that say hi, Scrotum, back, it's a really good way to actually identify who's cool. It's usually only like 2.
I was going to say.
I would say that very loudly.
I'm sure you would.
I would say, hi, scrotum.
I'm sure
Yeah,
you would.
exactly. So usually like 3 people.
I'd
and
get.
they're like,
I'd
"Alright,
get.
they're cool."
I'd get halfway
then
through
I would
the word.
talk. Then I would talk to you after the meeting, and you wouldn't even have to get a desire chip. I
Oh,
would just
God.
come and talk to you.
I'd get halfway through the word and like,
We've
look
got-
around
I've
for
got
old ladies.
We've got stories.
Make sure I'm not
here.
offending anybody.
So let's go ahead and start off with the basics. Obviously, you were an addict at some point, right?
Yeah.
So let's
That happened?
kind of start because you do bits and pieces on your YouTube channel, which is very popular. If you don't know, go look that up.
yeah, cool channel.
Yeah.
Good content.
Thank you.
I spent I
So-
spent a good couple hours deep diving in there.
Thank you.
Right. So, but basically, there's a story that happened before there, and where. Let's just start with where your abuse started.
No, like for me, I'm very keen on, developmental science and how the brain develops, especially at young ages. So I always start my story at like a young age, and a lot of it's very unclear to me, and it's something that, I'm working on remembering a lot of it. There
Sure.
was a time where it was like a light, where my childhood was normal and sane, and I'm very grateful for that because I know some people go through abuse at really young ages.
Sure.
And, I think that's always kind of helped me survive the rest of the trauma. It's been like a foundation of light. So I just remember being a kid and being really connected with consciousness almost. I was excited about being me and other people being them. And things are good, but then, things got rough, and around 11 years old, parents, rough divorce, a lot of things I wasn't even aware of happening. All of a sudden, I'm being confided in and told what's going on. And then at school, severe bullying, like probably one of the worst. It's like one of those. It's not a pride and reverse thing, but I was like, I just don't think I ever seen another kid get it as bad, because I went to Haggard Middle School and we had like these really big tables, and I was like, pretty much, it's like I was the only kid that sat at a table by himself.
Yeah.
And that was odd just because of how big the tables were. Like you'd have to go out of your
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
not sit with me in a very big way.
When you're little like that too, it's almost like almost like accentuates the loneliness with this
Yeah.
big giant table.
I tried to be,
And you're the freaks and geeks, and you're like
Yeah.
way down at the end of the table with your little carton of milk and
Yeah.
whatnot.
I can picture it though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a very, very highly traumatic time in my life. And then I'd get home and one parent left, brother wasn't there, and then I was dealing with a depressed parent. And, I understand like depression a lot better now, but as a kid, it's like it's kind of hard to understand those things. So it's just, I didn't feel wanted at school, and
Yeah.
I didn't feel wanted at home. I tried to be invisible. I felt like if people actually saw me, that was what created issues. I remember holding in coughs in class when I had like bronchitis, just because I didn't want anybody to actually hear anything.
Oh,
about
wow. Hey, be sure and talk into the microphone.
So that was, a very traumatic time in my life. And then eventually I got to a point where I realized if I do things outrageous, I could at least make people laugh.
Sure.
And then, so I would just do things. And then, it kind of just, from there, it's like I would be really quiet in some
Was
class.
that like maybe a class clown aspect?
Oh,
or
God,
like, what would you do?
Oh my gosh. I almost got sexual harassment stuff, assault stuff.
As a kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like going up to the principal and grabbing him inappropriately.
Okay. All
In front of,
So
like, the whole school.
You would maybe say acting out.
Yeah, really. And it wasn't like, it was really just to be that guy that, like,
Just
I
trying to
realized
be
that-
outlandish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I realized it was like being invisible in a different way, because that wasn't something I normally would do, and I was scared to do those things. But I was able to put on a mask that other people would laugh at. And honestly, YouTube was the same. It was putting on another mask. I always just did that. And I always hid who I really am or what I'm really going through.
Mm-hmm.
Because, YouTube, you're talking about your past experiences, but talking about me today is like uncomfortable to me. I've always been extremely honest with my past. I'm not ashamed of it.
Right.
But then when I'm going through it, but, it gets to a point where I realize I could hide behind the drinking. So it's someone would be like, well, why would you do that? Why would you do something so crazy? You're obviously doing it for attention. And then you could just say, well, I was drunk. When you're drunk, you can you could walk right into a wall, and it's funny to people. So it kind of like changed the narrative. And honestly, it did fix. It fixed the inattentiveness. It made my mind slow down. I always had like a super fast mind, and still do to this.
Sure, yeah. And we'll get into your ADHD because I know that's a big part of who you are and what made you do that. But so, like, let's say just drug-wise, alcohol-wise, when did you start using?
17, yeah.
Okay.
17. And it was alcohol and
Sure.
pot. It did the gateway effect. It was like, I hate saying that, but I remember looking down on people that took anything pharmaceutical, anything chemical, and I was very into the hippie psychedelics.
Sure.
And weed heal things and are therapeutic and good for you almost.
Right.
And then, eventually it's like, okay, well, let me try that. And then it feels great. And you're like, okay, it's like opening up your boundaries.
Right.
Because whenever you test them, you get a reward for it.
Sure.
So then when I got into ecstasy, that's when it kind of just took off in another direction around 20 years old.
Right. And just, I want to put this out there that you consider yourself a poly, which a lot of people don't know what that is. A poly is somebody that uses multiple supplements, substances.
Yeah.
Sure.
A little Freudian slip there.
Yeah.
But, whereas I did other things, but I identify as an alcoholic and a DJ.
And a
but,
DJ.
Yeah. But you can't really just pinpoint and say this was the main issue. It's like like Nolan here always likes to say that his addiction was just more.
Yeah.
So that was it.
But for me, it was like I used drugs like a typical ADHD person, so it was about novelty chasing for me. And there was like a couple like
once you had that one in your bag, then you were like, oh, let's move on to the next.
That's
I've
exactly how.
I've heard things about this one.
Yeah. Just trying stuff out.
That's exactly how ADHD people are just like that in our lives. We'll get a job, the novelty's there, we're the best workers ever. We get kind of bored, we have to have another one. And then the drug use is so similar to that. Just and meth and marijuana, ecstasy, and alcohol stick out.
Yeah,
to where those were like, so especially marijuana, that was just the base.
Right. Yeah, because you were saying that it changed your mindset, and to where you hear that marijuana's a gateway. Well, to some people it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, that whole gateway thing, I get your aversion to it, too. I kind of hate the term, too. It seems...
I think it's usually silly. I think the trauma was the gateway, the being bullied and the genetics.
Right.
And I think the idea, it, like, triggers this idea that, it's a gateway in some sort of, I don't know. I think it's really just a gateway in the sense that you start... once you start changing the way that you feel or changing your, getting high on whatever it is, that's the gateway. It doesn't really have to be any one substance. It just happens to be marijuana and alcohol.
But I mean, whereas marijuana for him was a mind-altering thing to where it made his perception.
No, but what I'm saying is like I think the reason those are gateways is just because they're super available and generally socially acceptable.
Right. Well, I mean,
Most
we were actually talking about marijuana and how it's going to be at 7-Eleven soon.
Sure.
Sorry, Kath. But there's going to I'll take some cig of weed and.
But that's why it's a gateway, because it's just out there. It's acceptable socially. It's easily available. It's kind of cheap,
Right.
So if you want to check something out, like getting high, it's a good place to start. But as far, like you said, the gateway is this idea that I don't like this. I don't change
like reality.
This.
Yeah, I don't like my current reality, and I want
to change this
it.
in some kind of way.
Right. So let's go, because you touched on ADHD a little bit. So I know that's a huge topic for you and something you actually struggle with today, like currently. What would you say? You've always had ADHD, And then when you started using, did that exacerbate, or is that a word?
You were close, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're on it.
Okay. I just have to check and make sure I didn't make something up. And,
Used properly and everything.
Okay, cool. But did the ADHD, was that personified by the drug usage?
Yeah, to make it better or worse.
Yeah.
The drug use made ADHD better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So it's just self-medicating. I mean,
Sure.
but it was really like the problem with it was like taking a drug and not having any instructions of use like you would get on a prescription bottle or over-the-counter medication. It's like just, you get aspirin, you kind of have an idea how much to take. If you take 20, it'll be your last headache. But when you're self-medicating you get a bag of drugs, there's no like, this is how much you take, this is the purity.
Right.
But the reality is, like, I think that the self-medicating with substances probably saved my life in a lot of ways. And then, of course, it got worse with age. I would say my YouTube channel made it so much worse than the drug use. So usually the environmental stuff made it worse, and the drug use was something I did to cope with the environment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you gain notoriety online, and then, anything. I remember being at, like, Sam's Club. I was a 10-an-hour cashier. I was happy with it.
Yeah.
And I was going to meetings, and I remember, like, in God's plan, I wanted to, higher powers plan, I wanted to basically get to a point of some kind of success where I could be proud of my work, and not say I'm a cashier at Sam's, which is one of the biggest learning lessons I had to go through. So the more success I got, the more empty I got, and that's because novelty is important. So when you get a good job that pays well and that becomes your new normal, then things that used to excite you don't anymore. And with YouTube, that caused like dopamine deficit, where now it's normal to get 100,000. Now it's normal to travel. Now it's normal to help people. Like, all that's just normal.
Right.
Well, then, so it's not exciting anymore. And then you go to the gym or you go to college, and it's like, this is so, your excitement tolerance can build. The same with, sleeping with women. It's like, that was novel when I was like 20, but now it's not like.
Well, it's just like like you said, the novelty wears off, and like the thing is it's the same with any addiction, really. Essentially, you're like, okay, this is my new norm, and then that's how you act, and then it's like, okay, well, this is kind of just dull, so let's try to find some other form of dopamine producing,
You guys are both touching on something that's essentially at the heart of addiction science. So the body, the brain, is a incredible machine, right? And it's the thing that it does the best is adapt. The human brain, the human body will adapt to just about any situation that you put it in. It's very resilient. So that excitement tolerance is the same thing as a drug tolerance. It's all the same thing. It's your body or your brain trying to adapt to what you're putting it in. So it's always trying to achieve a balance. It's always trying to achieve homeostasis is what it's called, basically. But if you start putting it in these dopamine spikes, whether that be from sex, whether that be from shopping, gambling, huge dopamine spikes like from cocaine or heroin or whatever, these overloads, homeostasis, the balance comes up here, right? And then,
hold on.
So
I have to applaud homeostasis.
Well, and that's what's happening, and
sure.
then that's addiction. So
would
this
you like
becomes,
to tell the people what homeostasis is?
Well, it's basically
professors sometimes.
Yeah, it's
you
it's
do not
new
realize
normal.
how intelligent you are.
It's new normal, is what it is. The what would an analogy be? Okay, so if we're all from Texas, right? Or at least we're all in Texas. It's relatively hot here.
Okay.
When it's 100 degrees outside, we deal with it a lot better than somebody from Minnesota coming down here.
Sure.
They look at us like, how do you even deal with this? Whereas when we go up there and it's 10 degrees and, they're just in a long sleeve shirt, we're like, you're insane.
Right.
That's all that it is. Their body has adapted.
I enjoyed your mental chalkboard.
Their body has adapted to that cold. As an addict, you adapt to the chaotic lifestyle and the constant dopamine spikes of feeding it drugs.
Right.
If you get into chasing that success, you adapt to that success, and then something smaller just doesn't cut it for you anymore.
Sure.
What used to be right here is now down here because the scales have tipped. But that's what
homeostasis.
That's all that's happening in addiction is that you are conditioning your brain into having
Sure.
that chemical, those dopamine
I
spikes,
gotcha.
and then when you take it away,
That's like
it becomes a
that's
problem.
ADHD is a behavioral addiction issue where you're
Yep.
Right.
like nobody ever taught me what it was about hyper focus, and if they told me, I would say, oh gosh, like I totally have that. So it was
Right.
such a huge societal misunderstanding, and a lot what he was saying with adapting to your environment. There's genetic factors, and I feel like that's like almost the loaded gun, and then the environment and trauma is like pulling the trigger. Because
Yep. That's the idea.
whenever you're a kid and you're that young, your brain is rapidly developing because of neurodarwinism, and our brains have to fit through the birth canal, so they develop more than in many mammals. You'll see like a deer get born, and it can kind of fend for itself, and it
Yep.
has a cognizance of its environment, but a baby is just helpless. So whenever you're traumatized as a kid, and you're not in a nurturing environment, you're not getting nurture from your parents or from your school or anything, then the neural pathways to produce dopamine, they don't develop. And because of that, it causes me to self-medicate. And drugs were just one of the so many things. Drugs were a thing that self-medicated me to where I could function. But there was a dysfunction of being so hyper-focused on one thing, whether that's making music, whether that's a new job. It's like
Sure.
you're so hyper-focused. I was like a professional guitarist with a room full of trash, college dropout multiple times, but I can really shred on guitar. And we're dream chasers, and that's why we're famous actors and comedians and authors, because
DJs.
yeah, and our minds just don't ever seem to really stop. There's
Right.
not really a
Now,
hidden
I
break.
want to kind of back this up, though.
Yeah, we were getting in
So-
the weeds there, huh?
Yeah.
No, it's good stuff.
Yeah, no, I liked it.
Yeah.
But, okay, so you basically started your drug use at 17.
Yeah.
And then at what age did it become a problem?
I would say it's hard. I would just
I mean,
say
approximately.
I would
Yeah.
say I had a life problem since I was like 11, but then the drug use is just it wasn't even a symptom of the problem. It was the only thing that made the problem go away.
Right.
So
Well,
I don't like, that's a big thing for me, is like with the gateway stuff and all this, it's saying using drugs and being addicted to drugs is wrong and bad. No, it's not. My best friend is a crystal meth and heroin addict, and his loyalty throws anybody I met who's sober under the table. So,
Yeah.
just saying to people they have a spiritual malady, that they're selfish, saying that this is
Right.
a gateway drug implies.
Well, all I was really trying to get to was
Yeah.
just where
Let's phrase
where
it like
it
this.
became like from social to where you were like, okay, I'm just to break it down in layman's terms, where it became a problem for you, where it was like you had to seek it out every day and you needed
Yeah.
that drug in order to function.
Yeah, it's a good
that's
way
an
to say it.
interesting thing. You're talking about like psychological dependency.
Or phrase it like this: at what point did you start to take a look at your own drug use and become dissatisfied with it?
There you go.
Where you're like,
Yeah,
hey,
that's
this is-
it really is marijuana, and I wish I could have a timeline, because I used to not get like withdrawals from it, but at some point around maybe 20, I started getting withdrawals, and that's the only thing I had a really severe psychological dependency to. Now, like some people do weed and they're fine. That's why I say it's like when they go into the gateway thing, it's an interesting societal phenomenon, because it's basically projecting their future, and it's looking at their behavior now and saying that's how you're going to end up. When there's people that smoke marijuana, and if they don't function as well. There's people that benefit in a recreational context, therapeutic context, and it's like they intuitively know how to use a substance. So it's like
Sure.
driving a car. You get instruction, and you kind of know it's a tool to get from point A to point B. But if you had no instruction, of course, there's some people that will naturally not put the pedal to the metal, and there's people like me that will hit the gas full force, because
Sure.
with ADHD, it's such a 0 to 100 perception of life.
Right.
So anything I do, it's already pedal to the metal until the engine burns out. And
So you keep on touching on the ADHD. Let's talk about. Let's just go ahead. And so you're saying about mid-20s, it became an issue. Early 20s, it became where you were noticing, excessive use, or what would be, acceptable or social use. And then, and all this time you're dealing with ADHD. So you're currently dealing with ADHD. And we were talking about, medications that you take for it, or, what would you, if somebody, okay, maybe say the symptoms of ADHD, and then say, give them advice on what you would do if they think they have ADHD.
Yeah, what's working for you now? I mean, you self-medicated with drugs for a while, so what's the Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah.
Like, what's working for you now?
Well, like the ADHD symptoms. I mean, I feel like we're just basically clones of each other. I mean, if I could sit down with somebody, it's like we really relate. Like I see people's feelings. My brain moves so fast that, you know, I could feel judged real easily. This can either cause social isolation, but it also can cause extroversion, where you see people's feelings, so you get to a place where you know you're not going to make people feel awkward. Because I'll like see a salesman trying to push some on somebody, and I actually see the emotion of the person they're pushing it on. And I'm not really an empath as much, but the ability to see that made me an extrovert, but it used to make me incredibly shy. Hypersexuality, in the sense of like being with the same person, eventually you get bored of them. So I couldn't be in a long-term relationship, and I didn't understand how people ever could and not get bored of the person they're with. The first kiss, great, and I'm obsessed, and I like them, and I'll put on this persona of like this true love, and then it becomes like a normalized thing.
Oh, you just power through that, bro.
Yeah,
Just power through.
no, but my drop is insane. If something bad happens, that's really small.
Right.
Like I think because I've been on medication, so I know what neurotypical's like.
Sure.
Like as on medication, I drop $20 in a parking lot. I could focus on something else. Somebody says you have a problem, focus on something else and come back to it. And that I understood was a disability. I'm not able to do that, so I'll be thinking of the $20 I drop, which even if I have a ton of money in my bank account, I keep thinking about that, and I can't stop.
You obsess. Yeah,
job. I'll start. I'm the employee that will be on fire at a job, like the best employee ever, and people are like, "Man, this guy's great." And within the second the job starts losing novelty, it's literally like a death sentence almost.
Sure, and you would describe that as basically how your ADHD is in your own personal life.
Yeah, and I don't understand the world
experience.
system. For me, I always felt like I didn't have an issue. I felt society did, because people are so satisfied with such boring lives, and it never made any logical sense to me.
Sure.
So I always felt like, you know, it's smart to chase your dreams, and why are you guys all conforming to this really boring system? And then you start, even to this day, like we have a system, like human nature, we're told, is selfish, self-seeking, jerks basically. But I think it's loving and kind. We're just so far removed from our natural environment. You start seeing that we're catering to a certain type of brain chemistry, and I still agree with that. And medication is a necessary evil, because the world system is not natural.
Now, touching on that, what are you finding that is working to treat your ADHD? Beside, I mean, we'll get to the recovery aspect of it and the different things, but I mean, as far as medication, what is it that, you know, is working for you now?
Well, I did take Adderall for a while, and that's like some, you know, it's controversial to an extent, because you don't really want to, you know, people that identify with ADHD can have an epiphany, and you don't really want the problem I had, and you talked about going to seek treatment for it, is that I was scared of antidepressants, always have been, always just rejected it, no thought at all. And they have antidepressant, non-stimulant, non-addictive medication, or they have stimulant medication, of course, is a recovering. And did the addiction play a role? Perhaps, but a part of it was I just want a tool, and I'm not sure, because when you find out your ADHD, you're kind of like, it's like a blessing, you know. There's really
well, you feel a relief, because you're like, okay, well, I mean, it's not, you know, it's not that I'm an addict, it's because I'm trying to deal with a problem.
Yeah, there's a name for what's been going on, that kind of thing. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
The big thing was, you know, being afraid of antidepressants. You know, the analogy I told people is like when you're sailing a ship and there's a wave, your instinct is to turn away from it, but you're really supposed to dive right into it. And that avoidance of facing that fear of antidepressants ended up being something that just I didn't sit right with. Even though Adderall at low doses did help me. You know, lowest dose I ever took was 20 milligrams, and I thought, what if I took 5? And I took.
Of course, yeah, because that's always a good thing. If I take more, it's going to be better.
Oh no, he was saying less actually.
Oh, less.
Well,
okay.
yeah. Well, you know, like someone who drinks, if they only drink 4 drinks at a time, and they say, well, maybe it's a totally different thing at a lower amount, and that's what the doctor and me worked out. And I was given these pills, and they were mini, and I was like, why are they so small? And it's because it's preteen. They use it for the mouth of infants, so I wasn't taking. And then when I took that low of a dose, like at 20 milligrams, it's almost like a microscope. Like I'm so manic and focused on one thing. And then without any medication, it's really like scattered glass windows. It's like looking at each color and
They have infant Adderall.
Oh, they
Yeah.
do. We were talking about this. They actually prescribe Adderall at 2 years old.
Come on.
Well, yeah, I used to be so hard on against that because I was honestly not very humble and just wanted to come out and say that's messed up. But there are factors like neuroplasticity where you say like, okay, so my environment was destructive and caused trauma, caused my brain to develop differently. ADHD played into that, always failing your classes, not being able to socialize, seeing other people's feelings and feeling judged. Had I been on medication, would it cause brain damage? Absolutely. But you have to kind of find a balance between that and being in a nurturing environment can actually cause the brain to develop more properly. So, you know, with the neuroscience, it's like something I used to jump into, but now it's like much more of, okay, I still don't know. You know, I still don't know. I could kind of lay out a map to say this is why I don't know. Like it's a little more at face value. It gets more, but you know, when I took 5 milligrams the first time, it was like the way I know I'm ADHD is it was like a psychedelic experience. It wasn't. I hear people say they get tired. For me, I did understand that. It was the first time I could actually lay down and not shake my leg or clench a muscle and be relaxed. Like it did make me able to sleep. And it was
are you currently? You're not on Adderall.
No, I
currently?
take Wellbutrin now. And
Okay.
That was what happened to me was jumping between, because when I took Adderall, I was going into a neurotypical mindset, and then when it wears off, you go back into ADHD, and that back and forth transition was too extreme. And I don't think medication is a lifelong thing for me. It's really getting out of a hole. When you go through like dopamine deficit from fame, you sometimes need a bridge to get out of it. But I think being ADHD is it's neither good or bad, but for me, if I evaluate it on paper, I'd say it's superior for what I want, my goals, to being neurotypical. So medication is purely a bridge to get me out of this hole to where I can get a little more stability, because otherwise I am, fully, completely dysfunctional, way more likely to relapse, more likely to get in a car wreck, STDs, you know, literally everything. I'm a chronic relapser. And with medication, I hear the addictive personality. It's always with addiction. That's the thing that's so interesting to me. It's always a personality problem, a spiritual problem. It's always something like that, and we can't just break it down to maybe this is a problem of the brain. I mean, we kind of know that. So, like, I always thought I had
or
it.
You're predisposed to having this issue.
Well, like, they're not mutually exclusive. You know, it could be all those things. I mean, I definitely know that. You know, brain science is taking a lot of leaps and bounds, especially over the last like 6-7 years, and getting a lot better. And because of the nature of addiction and how much it affects everybody's lives right now, it would be nice if there was a little more funding, a little more research going into it. But I'm grateful for what is being done. And there's definitely a lot of issues going on with the brain, especially when it comes to trying to recover from and trying to make up that deficit and bridging with medication and a lot of that stuff they're really taking a close look at right now. I know when we were in Summer Sky, I mean, it's something that they're starting to push a lot, you know, whether using Wellbutrin or other antidepressants or there's some different medications out there that they're trying to use to help make up these serotonin deficits and these huge... Because people get depressed. People, you know, coming off of a 10-year meth binge and just going from that to nothing. You know, sometimes can be very tough on the brain.
Definitely.
And especially if you've got other issues going on like ADHD or a clinical depression.
So we've got a little bit of your before story. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. This thing called YouTube.
Is that the elephant in the room?
I guess.
Yeah.
Besides drug use.
I'm trying to place when you started. When you started making videos.
So like, okay, so like you realize you have a problem, and you've been to rehab how many times?
Oh, I've been a couple times, and I've been going to so many different types of recovery, smart recovery support groups, different 12-step programs since I was about 22 years old, and I'm 30 now. 31.
And when did you start your YouTube channel, though?
I was 23, and I just remember feeling like I was in a 12-step meeting, and I was working as a content strategist for a tech company, actually in Frisco, and doing digital marketing campaigns, so I already had a really good eye for how to market any brand. And I was sitting in a 12-step meeting, and they said the newcomer is the most important person in the meeting. And I said, well, why are a bunch of healthy people around healthy people telling people how great they feel and how healthy they are? And to me, it just seemed like
healthy is relative. I don't know about that.
Well,
Right.
I mean, it's
Well, no, but
I know what you
know,
mean.
people like you get there and
I know what you mean.
It's
Yeah.
like I go to, like anything, like a church. It's like all these people are clean cut, really put together, have great jobs. And then we got a bunch of people on Skid Row that are depressed and have no human connection at all.
Right,
And,
and that was kind of your idea behind it, is because you were wanting to target the active user,
Yeah, 100%.
not somebody that was already done with it, or in recovery, so to say. You wanted to target the active user. So
Yeah, so I brought-
what was your first video you did?
Oh, I did. The first one that really did well was What's Meth Like? So I knew to come at them from a drug education standpoint and not to sell recovery, because recovery is a language they don't understand.
Yeah, nobody's buying
And they
that.
don't.
And active
They don't
use.
want to be sold to, because the bottom line is, anytime you're trying to convince somebody that they should get sober, you're saying you're broken. I need to fix you. And that's there's nothing wrong with anybody at all. And I've matured so much since starting the channel. Like, starting in the beginning, I might have said something like that, but I always knew deep down there's something wrong with it, and I don't know what it is. But now it's like, when I see any human being, homeless, drug user, prostitute, somebody clean cut, billionaires in Beverly Hills, I say we're all phenomenons in nature, just like the patterns in running water, flickering a fire, the universe, a formation of the galaxy. We look at these things like, oh, so beautiful, or even some of these animals, but we don't look at ourselves and each other that way. And the reality is, saying there's nothing you can do to get sober, it sounds like a sentence of guilt, but the reality is there's nothing you have to do, because you're perfect the way you are. You're not a project that I need to fix. And so, like, with me, I've always tried to give them a safe place and not sell them on anything. And the way to do that is to talk eye to eye with them and to go into the actual issue that you're dealing with. And in that endeavor with YouTube, I mean, it just was insane. I was doing like peer support for free. I was like Bruce Almighty. I was getting like 200 messages.
Bruce Almighty.
Yeah,
I
200
just,
messages a day. And I was
and
actually...
they're all in your head. Oh, my God.
I'd respond, and the reality was I did a lot of research. So there's science involved. I had to understand from a Hungarian doctor named Gabor Mate of the science involved in it. But the reality is, when someone of notoriety speaks to you, it actually causes an increase in serotonin and oxytocin. But any acknowledgement of humanization causes an increase of monoamines. What we were talking about with the self-medicating. So the reality is, the goal is really to connect to people, and the only way I can do that is to honestly, I'm inspired by active drug users. I think that they have less of a problem than society does, because society looks at a drug addict and says, how can you do this to your body? But they don't see, like, look at what we're doing to the earth. We're polluting the atmosphere. We're polluting the environments. I mean, and that stuff is killing the earth. Like, you look at the earth and it looks like just like the same exact thing, but then they judge the drug addict, and I think it's because deep down they want to be better. They don't want to see that they're nothing.
Yeah, they want to look down on those people and say that they're the scourge of the earth or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's human nature to fear what you don't understand, kind of thing.
I agree with that.
But yeah, but hey, look, part of it is it's difficult. A true active, like, I look at myself when I was an active drug addict. Okay, there's there was a lot going on that was difficult to be around. I was creating wreckage, and it wasn't because I was selfish or something was, I was a bad person, but I needed that drug. So certainly in my brain, I needed that drug that there was just about anything I'd do to get it. So, I definitely hear where you're coming from, but I would push back a little bit. I mean, there is some, there's like, I know for myself, once it gets to a certain point, then that needs to be arrested. Otherwise,
removed from society because of it dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, certainly I'm not talking about jail necessarily. Like, I wish there was more treatment as opposed to jailing. But there's a certain amount of, wreckage that you can't come back from that happens. I mean, killing someone in a car when you're driving in a blackout. I mean, those are things that happen.
Sure, yeah.
And you know,
I agree completely, and that's a physical boundary, and that's why when I approach, I go out, and if I see someone homeless down and out, I'll sit down and talk to them. But if I think that, you know, I approach them with caution but not fear. I'm not afraid of what could happen. But the reality is, like, society misses so many things about what we have as issues. Like right now, social media has caused teen suicide to skyrocket. It's interfered with our democracy. I mean, we've seen we've seen so many things at the Capitol riot. Hate groups are growing because of it. And why doesn't, you know, if it's causing a teen to kill themselves in any context, then why we as Americans who fight for children and freedom are rolling over, other than is an addicted society with actual society addiction. We will blame Trump, we'll blame the Democrats, we'll blame this, we'll blame that, but we'll never actually see the addiction itself.
Yep.
And in this war, all we have to do is boycott social media for a week. I mean, they want our data. If we actually wanted to change them, we wouldn't fight with them on their platform and give them more money. We would just say, and isn't that like a healthy, sane thing to do?
Yeah.
And then you look at the environment, how it's affecting the animals. I mean, when quarantine happened, I was sitting with the drug addicts, and
just you saying that, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm going, I think something's going to go wrong with your YouTube channel, dude.
Oh, yeah. Well, no,
You know,
I mean,
but
he's
I mean,
he's dead on, though. Like, if you
Yeah.
look at, I actually think it was like a 400% increase in teen suicide. It was like a 280% increase.
You know,
in
I see that because
teen depression.
there's
like,
kids like
directly from mobile,
Internet.
from, you know, social media available on mobile platforms.
I blame the Kardashians.
It all skyrocketed.
it's all set up. It's all set up too. I mean, getting a flip phone, I have to use. I got a flip phone prepaid for a while, but getting one is like a nightmare. Good luck. I mean, they tore down the 2G, 3G towers. They made it. You can't even get a plan with a company without having data now.
Right.
So it's
you
like
have to have a
once
smartphone.
you realize it's a problem.
Right.
Yeah. Once you realize it's a problem, and everybody looks at you like you're crazy. But then you're looking at what it's doing to society. There's a documentary on YouTube, Childhood 2.0, and it's something people never think about. Especially, you know, I'm 30. I was born in like 1990, and we actually went home when the street lights turned on, and we dated and we held hands. And now kids, they don't have that, and they don't even date. They send nudes. It's like it completely changed how.
Yeah.
If somebody in 1980 said one day we're all going to talk through email, we would look at them like you're crazy. Like,
sure.
And now we're in that. And then people look at the drug addict, and I'm like, dude, honestly, right now, they're the ones that inspire me the most, because at least they know what their problem is and they identify it. Like when quarantine happened.
Now, there's some truth to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
quarantine happened, and everybody's jinxing and going crazy because they have to sit inside. That's it. But the drug addicts, I was telling you on the streets, it was just another day to them, and they were just chilling. So we have so much reliance on electricity and these comforts in these cars that when I used to feel sorry for homeless people. Like give them my pity, but now I actually am inspired by them. I think that they're surviving I don't know if I could survive, and they have so much less reliance on a system that can fail at any moment, that when I sit with them, it's much more to learn and to gain from them, and I get from them. And they and the homeless and the people addicted to drugs, they just want to be humanized. Like a homeless person told me, you know, people either drive right past me, no eye contact. Other homeless people steal from me. People feel sorry for me. They see me as sick. And you're like, they don't know they ask for money. I give them money. But the truth is they haven't been humanized in so long that when they receive it, they cry. They tell me that they don't even remember ever receiving that because as a child, they weren't seen, just like I wasn't seen. And it's the same with approaching someone addicted to drugs.
So that's where you definitely feel a common bond with them, because you feel the same way, or you equate, you know, them being ignored to yourself being ignored.
I can tell you from experience, you know, it's funny, it kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier. What happened with me when I was homeless for a period of time is I adapted. It became the new normal, you know, and there were parts of it that were tough to adapt to. There would be certain events that would take place when you're in that life, in that world, that were that would just shake me to my core and I couldn't get over. There was a constant feeling of unsafe because, like, you know, people are always stealing from you. Your life is in danger a lot of times. That part is tough, but the not having shelter, the kind of things that we think of as, oh man, that would be so difficult.
Did you
That
ever-
wasn't difficult.
I know, Nolan. I know
That
Nolan,
part wasn't
you
difficult.
actually experienced homelessness.
Yeah.
And we talk about this often, but you actually were homeless, living behind a tent behind
Dif-
CVS.
different places. You bounce
Yeah.
around when you're homeless.
Sure. And
Yeah.
then, did you ever experience homelessness?
To an
in your
extent,
addiction,
but it
or-
was a choice for me. I mean, I was so ADHD. It wasn't really a choice. I was so ADHD. Like on my channel, there's a mini fridge and convection oven in the background because I was actually filming in an abandoned house. I got power in a room, and I was basically living like I tell people it was almost like Muhammad from the Quran. Like it was just unlivable. Like nobody was, and I was making really good money at my job, so there was no justification other than I just was inattentive to anything that wasn't exciting, and I never saw living conditions that are exciting. So it was so much more of a like with ADHD, as I say, my behavior was so extreme that I had people concerned about me doing Adderall, and I showed them where I used to live, and it's like their jaw hit the floor to realize you were
Yeah,
doing
right.
all this on YouTube as basically a homeless person by choice, by mental dysfunction. You weren't able to be attentive to any kind of infestation in your home, and so this place just torn apart.
Sure.
So and you know, it's a beautiful thing when we can just humanize, and we have a very addicted society, and society needs to find recovery. We as recovering addicts kind of know that, you know, I don't really believe there has to be a bottom, but we know how this story goes, and when you're really looking at how society's going, I mean, even with the food industry, the stuff that we just let companies get away with that is just so absolutely bizarre, like advertising to kids Oreos with these like cartoon characters. It's just normal, but stepping out of the box and
Oreos
really
are so
looking at
good.
that. These foods are designed to actually change the way the brain
Right.
works and get somebody, and then you go to the school cafeteria and there's junk food everywhere, and then someone gets
that makes me
obesity.
want
Yeah,
That
so-
makes me want a cheese chili dog.
I'm just
I'm just kidding.
It's true though that someone gets obesity and they're in a society that looks down on that
Right.
and doesn't do anything about the real problem.
Sure.
I don't think we're okay with our kids going through mental torment from social media, being removed, because a lot of kids what they say is like, you know, I don't want to be on social media. I want what you had. Almost every kid wants to
Yeah,
go out.
Sure, you want the
Yeah.
They do
sympathize,
romanticize. They absolutely
Yeah.
do
But it's not
romanticize
a
like
choice.
the
The
time frame where I
80s, it
grew
was
up
a
in.
beautiful time.
Yeah, my kids-
It was, actually.
my kids-
I loved it.
I talk about it with my kids all the time. They really do romanticize the time frame that I grew up in,
Well-
and that is a main reason why.
It's not a choice. We strip
was
that,
like
and it's
Well, I
it's so
romanticize,
sad.
you know, my parents in the 50s
Yeah.
and 60s. You know, I mean, it was...
Some
it
of
was
it's
like,
just
I'm
what we
like,
do.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
so cool.
Some of it's just
You
what
know,
we do, I guess,
yeah.
as humans or whatever.
Hey,
but
so while we're talking about the past, let's jump to the future.
Yeah.
the
Let's
future.
just go ahead.
Are we
Okay,
time
with
traveling?
well, I want to talk to him and get this in
Yeah.
about his YouTube channel and what you plan on doing with it and where you see it going. I mean, obviously, as a stream of income, you've got to like it to some aspect. But then, what direction or what are you planning to do, and or anything that you've come up with?
Well, I've
What was the last post you made, and then what do you plan for the future?
It's like it's weird. I live so much in the present now that I have like no plan for anything. Everything I like the unpredictability, and it's like I know when it hits me, I'll if it does, I'll do it. But I used to be so anxious about the future and pleasure. It was almost like I was. I knew. I heard a story of a girl that got a bunny and was so delighted that she actually squeezed it to death with love. And the reality is a lot of spouses do that to each other. A lot of parents do to their children. And
Would
a
you
lot
say
of
you
people
did
do-
that with your
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
channel?
Yeah, It's like
You pet the fur off the
you can
bunny.
be so anxious about not making it that
Sure.
you just keep on repeating, and you never actually really got there to begin with. And so like with me, like I found what recovery is, and for me, it was just been such a crazy ride with that. Because, you know, I remember all my friends at a point were addicted. Like I went through my phone and I was sober at the time, and that's just who I resonated with the most.
Sure.
And, you know, exploring humanity was a thing for me. It was huge. It was the ability to meet people in Beverly Hills that had all the money, the middle class, the lower class. I wanted to see it all. And,
Yeah, sure.
You know, and seeing all that, some of it's like really traumatic, and you see a lot of darkness, and you see a lot of inability for me to even see light, confront a lot of demons, and your mindset can get pretty depressed until you find a solution. And my solution is very Eastern by approach. So there's a very westernization approach to recovery, and it really is based on what Yeshua Mashiach said. I mean, it's elephant in the room. It's a Judaic-Christian program, but the issue I have with it is the translations are absolutely opposite. So they're basing a program off a book that is based on what a man said who said, I am the word, worship the word, but then they don't even, Aramaic is like a dead language.
Right.
But what he was saying...
And you actually do read Aramaic. I know that. Fun fact, CGKID reads Aramaic.
I'm not giving credit to God. I'm not, you know, I have to be clear, almost as a disclaimer, because I don't represent an ancient faith that's been around for thousands of years.
Sure.
And I could relapse tomorrow. I'm not going to say God is... You know, and but the reality is when you look at the recovery program, it's so westernized. So when you say easternized, people automatically think, oh, that's everything but the Bible. No, the Aramaic is very
and
Eastern.
we were also talking about, I love that you're bringing this up because, I am a large proponent of multiple pathways as far as recovery goes. I am all for the 12 steps, but I'm also all for people finding different avenues of recovery, if it be a sober community, like for example, you know, like the Skate Straight event that I'll be at tomorrow. But you know, and I think that's I love your open-mindedness about recovery, and it's not just in a box, and you can't just.
It takes a lot of pain. It takes a lot of humility, and I had to get smacked in the face so many times over. That, you know, what an Eastern approach is, there's a second step, and it throws off people, and people die because of that step and the way it's presented, and the Lord's Prayer at the end, and, you know, it's something you don't really want to talk about because they have a tradition against it, and they don't want to be regulated, but at the same time, it's a perpetuating problem of seek a power greater than yourself, but there's not really a clear definition of what the self is, and there's never a mention of this power exists within you and in your environment, and you have to believe something to be sober, even though there's animals like dogs that are absolutely zen and almost like the most spiritual place of seeing life as playful, being engaged, seeing work as play, and they don't believe anything. And if you ask a dog, who are you, it wouldn't even know it's a dog. It would just say, I am, which is a lot of what these things come down to. So I was always looking for a power outside of me, and they say addiction's cunning, baffling, and powerful. Well, the cunning nature of addiction is if it's going to hide the solution for you, it's not going to put it in a book. It's going to actually hide the solution within you and say it's blasphemy to look there. Like, don't look there.
You're getting usual suspects on me there.
Well,
like with the,
know, I hear what you're saying, but I would push back a little bit. It actually does multiple places, and a lot of the different 12-step literature specifically says that power is within you. One of the most quoted lines is, in the last analysis, we found it deep down within ourselves. You know, I mean, that whole... And I, you know, it is westernized. You're right. But I almost wonder. I'd love to go to like 12-step meetings in other parts of the world too. And actually, you know, I should take advantage of this COVID thing.
We are actually going to a refuge recovery on Monday in another part of the world called Denton.
And do some, I don't know if I want to go as far as Denton.
Yeah, right.
No, I'd love to check out some stuff in other parts of the world and see, you know, is it westernized there?
Right,
or
right.
It might be because the source, you know, is here. But I don't know. I'd love to check it out and see.
Sure. Like, well, hey, Shem, did you ever get that email I sent you?
Do you know, CG? Have you like checked out, gone on like Zoom meetings anywhere else or whatever?
See, it's really, it plugs in because the Western approach to recovery is very focused on human connection. I don't think that's bad, but I focus on like I realize now I could connect to the universe. So when like COVID happened and people couldn't go to meetings, and honestly, that to me, I'm not trying to like be too hard on what it is, but when you tell somebody they need to go to a meeting to stay sober, and if they stop going to meetings, they'll relapse. To me, that's like seeing a chiropractor and not a physical therapist. It's literally, it's not actually healing.
I can see that analogy.
And one of the big issues is, the big book will mention that, hey, you find it within yourself, but it's, as far as the meeting and what's shared, it's so implied, whether explicitly.
By the way, I love this about Philip. Philip used to go, because, I mean, he when I met him, he came across on the phone as, you know, a guy that's kind of self-isolating because, you know, he's got this YouTube channel.
Sure.
And you know, he's just kind of created his own world. And I'm like, well, hey, dude, you want to, like, leave the house and go with me?
Well, it's, you know, it's real amateur, too. I mean, it is literally just a room full of people
Sure,
like
no,
us.
but what
kinda
I was getting
coming
to,
up
what
with
I was
whatever,
getting
so
to,
you do get a lot of
no,
weird
but what I was
messages.
getting to, and I found funny, is that he would actually get a desire chip at each meeting,
Yeah.
so people would talk to him. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like,
It will do
I'm
that.
like, that's funny.
That's true. It
But
will
it's
do
true.
that.
Well, that's sad. It's sad because you can go there and be vaping by yourself and new, but nobody actually approaches you.
Right,
Ever.
but if you get a
Yeah.
desire chip,
Yeah, then everybody, you'll get
Yeah.
numbers. Everybody introduce themselves to you.
here, everybody, it's
Sure.
a new guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
people lie about being
which
sober.
I
Well,
mean,
it's tough to know.
but I think people, do it out of kindness because they're programmed to look
Yeah.
out for the new person that wants what we have, but I mean, but you going there and wanting to actually talk to people and using that as a device to get people to talk to you, I found genius. Funny.
Genius.
Yeah.
I like
I
that.
thought it was fine. Hey, so real quick, because we're gonna wrap it up here in a little bit, but do you have? Because I know you said a lot, but do you have like any future videos you're planning? I mean, or
Yeah, we didn't kind of get to that. So where's
Yeah.
the channel going?
Well, I made I kind of, you constantly are learning and it's peeling back an onion. And whenever the channel comes to my mind, like pretty recently, I was like, gosh, it's so dark. Because I don't really see darkness as a problem. I
Sure.
think it's a canvas for the light. I think it's beautiful. So I've always been friends with it. And I think it's, I'm very into Taoism, yin yang, and I have a very deep respect for it. And that, to really get down myself, and I have to be very clear on where I defined the
So
difference.
you're saying you want to do something lighthearted?
Well, yeah, well, when I'm saying
We'll have like a puppet show on
peeling
there.
back the onion, peeling back the onion, I'm like, okay, power greater than self. It's found within, great, but I have to clearly define what myself is. Myself is my experiences, my perceptions, the voice I'm using, my body.
Right.
It's literally, I tell people when I die, everything that's not me dies. And I heard that from somebody, Eckhart Tolle, and everything that's not you dies. So when I look at somebody dead, I'm like, everything is the self. My sober time's the self. My YouTube channel's the self. So the power greater than self, I have to be very clear on this, is that when there's a voice in my head, I'm the one saying it, I'm the one hearing it, and that's a duality. When someone says, I can't live with myself, who was the I and the self, and identifying the difference. And I'm not the voice in my head, I'm the one who hears it. And the more I'm connecting to that side of me, I'm finding a light that I didn't ever really know existed. So
That's good.
My channel is extremely dark. I mean, I've given people anxiety attacks for
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Once
So
you-
are you
yeah.
thinking taking it somewhere maybe just kind of spiritual instead of maybe?
No. See, because that's the issue, is you can actually give so much light that it's another form of blindness. And I think, the channel's been so dark that I need at least one video to cast shadow and give form to the whole thing. And in that video, I really can't. I can't have literally nothing to teach. I share this stuff for fun. It's art with words. It's not to persuade or convince. When it gets down to spirituality, I learned so much more from animals and children than I do from adult humans. Adult humans are great at physical world advice, but spirituality, it's important to give people a map, because if life doesn't reveal itself to them, the lesson loses all of its value. And you can actually idolatrize a belief and think, I have to believe that to be sober. You don't want to.
Gotcha.
So if I were to actually come out and talk to them, it wouldn't be like, do this, do that. This is what you need to do, point A, point B. It's so much more of, here's a map. Here's what happened to me and what it's done for me. And you can expand on that yourself. And it's so important that people are given that opportunity to think for themselves.
So basically, in essence, you are going to take your content to a lighter area.
On one video, because
On one video,
because
just
you can't, like, if you're a spiritual person, I mean, literally what I would say to
Sure.
people is listen, like, understand, like, an animal, like a dog or any animal, learn from silence.
Okay.
And children learn from silence. There's
Right.
not a whole lot of communication.
Sure.
So I learned from silence. That's real important.
Okay.
Well, just a-
And then, do you have real quick? Do you have any shout outs? Anybody you'd like to say hi to?
I like guinea pigs a lot.
He'd like to say
Shout
hi
out to
the
guinea pigs.
Yeah.
He wants to start a guinea pig commune.
They are cute.
Yeah,
they are.
I've been seeing a girl. Her name's Alice, and we're talking about starting a guinea pig commune.
Well, if you ever get that up and running, I hope to see that on the channel.
I would. There would.
Shout
there
out
would be the
to
light.
I'll shout out to Summer Sky again. Thanks so much
Hey,
for the
let's,
sponsorship, guys.
Let's go ahead and pull up that shirt real quick because now I actually sent it to her via email. Now these are the hot shirts that are going to be coming,
This is
and
the
they're
new
going to be
hotness?
available on DJKellyReverb.com.
Oh, look at that.
So there's our tagline. With the I went to
rehab and all I got was my life back.
There you go. And then the other one, which is there is no magic pill for sobriety. If there was, we'd all take too many. So those are going to be fun shirts. I'm excited about wearing.
Yeah, those are cool.
Wearing a pill, skating on a skateboard with a
Of course.
rainbow behind it.
Of course. I actually have that tattooed large on my chest.
I thought I saw a tramp stamp otherwise. But,
I have that too.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But,
thanks for
hey,
joining us, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
GGK.
I want to thank you for coming out and breaking your silence, so to speak.
Thank you. It was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
for
and
sure,
we'll definitely have you back on anytime you want. And good luck on the YouTube channel. I don't think you need it, but thanks for coming out, and we will see you next week.
Peace out,
This
guys.
Pink Cloud, and obviously, don't forget, there is no magic pill for sobriety. If there was, we would all take too many.
Everybody have a good weekend.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good weekend.